Well, hey, folks. I hit live just as soon as I realized that I didn't have a microphone plugged in. Stand by. All right. Maybe now we can rock and roll. I know. My apologies. It's the time of year where live streams kind of happen when I can make them happen. And trying, uh, trying to schedule stuff way in advance doesn't always work when I get to the end of the day and there are many things that need to take precedence over yakking on the internet. But I was able to make it happen tonight. So looking forward to catching up with you guys. So Pip and Ice is checking in. Good sir, good to hear from you. Hope all is well down there. And yeah, happy Monday, happy Memorial Day. Although I know it sounds weird to say happy Memorial Day, but I'll get to that in a little while. I've got some thoughts on this particular holiday and how we're going to tie it together with building your personal freedom and living the life that suits you as a way of honoring uh, our soldiers who have died in service to the country. So I'm going to be this might be a little bit different than what you may hear about on your average Memorial Day broadcast. But I got some stuff to catch you guys up on. I don't think I've actually done a live stream since early April, so uh, let's see. I feel like I've been all over the place. I've certainly been all over the Southeast. Um, Living Free in Tennessee Spring Workshop was the last weekend in April, as it always is. And it's going to rank up there as probably my favorite, really, thus far. Um, I was able to get all of my poop in a group this year, and things were in good shape at home so that I could be there for the bulk of the event, which was my hope, and I was able to work that out. And this time around, amongst uh, so many wonderful presenters, we had Alan Booker there, and Alan is one of the smartest guys in permaculture and regenerative sciences, period. End of story. Just brilliant guy, wonderful presenter, wonderful teacher. So we enjoyed several 90-minute presentations that he took us through. So we were able to deep dive some soil science, soil testing, understanding uh, mapping, understanding the scales of permanence on a landscape, and just so much stuff in that realm. So if you're not familiar with Alan's work, you got to look the guy up. That's ALAN Booker. Um, he is one of the key guys out working on um, fixing the soils out in the mountains that got absolutely wrecked by Hurricane Helene last October. So the man's got his heart in a good place. Wonderful teacher, super giving of his time and his skill set. So that was really the kind of stuff that I was looking forward to hearing. We had a ton of good presenters. I actually did a kind of a coverage of what building our off-grid homestead looked like and how we pulled that off, and kind of talked some actual numbers and costs and things. So so that was one of my contributions. And of course, we did a foraging walk, and just enjoyed lots of good food, fellowship, camaraderie, slight shenanigans. Although I usually tend to go to bed before the shenanigans get real creative. So so yeah, that was wonderful. So always a big thank you to Nicole and the rest of the Holler neighbors that pull it together for a great workshop every year. It was a good one. Um, and since then, I've had some travel for consults. I spent a couple of days, really about a day and a half, out in Camden to do a Hopston installation for special operations equipment. So we did a 50-foot run to grow Cascade hops on, and from parking lot to install. So that included augering in poles, 25-foot poles, setting the line, um, and we ended up, because we were doing it on an old section of parking lot, we ended up just bringing in several yards of composted wood chips and rake those into place, packed them down at it, and I'm talking a foot or more worth. And we actually decided to plant right into that, just build right on top of that parking lot. And because we needed to put them somewhere where John's sheep would not necessarily be able to access them right away. So we got that done. And then just last night, I got back from the Exit and Build conference. Nicole and I carpooled out there, stayed at a most wonderful Airbnb along with Amani and River from Haven Earth Village, and one of their neighbors, and it seems like maybe there was somebody else there. But yeah, we it was big cottage, several rooms, and so we shared that cottage, which was beautiful on a river. I mean, just look really really cool spot. It's called the Cottage at the Middle River in. It's not in Swope, Virginia, but it's close. And so it was such a cool spot. It had me thinking. I was like, I really ought to rent this place out for a few nights and bring my wife up here and maybe take a real vacation at some point when we have somebody out here who can look after everything when we're away. So yeah, Pippin said that, she live streamed. We pretty much live stream all of the stuff at Nicole's workshop. So it's all there. So if you go to the Living Free and Tennessee channel, and I think if you go to the live tab, just scroll back a little ways, all the workshop presentations should be up. And so yeah, Alan's stuff is all right there along with his slides and everything. And if there's anything like specific that Alan, could convey, like because he got into like several application tools and things like that. Just email him, and he's in our Telegram group too. He's in the Living Free Tennessee Telegram group, so he's happy to help. Just big-hearted guy. So yeah, so we ran out to Polyface Farm for John and Rebecca Bush's Exit and Build Land Summit, and this was one of those things that kind of fell into my lap a little bit last minute. Rebecca reached out to me to see if I wanted to grab a vendor space. They had a couple of vendor spaces left, and that was an easy yes for me. So I have not yet made the time to get out to Polyface Farm, and Joel's work was the first that I found at this point, actually almost 20 years ago. Found his books at the library when I was just starting to read up on basically farming. I knew one day I wanted to get back out here to the family land, and so this was before YouTube was really a thing, or all that, or at least it might have been around, but I wasn't really adept at using it. So I was still going to books for everything, and found this guy, this lunatic farmer guy that's writing books like everything I want to do is illegal. And, he's talking about the pigness of pigs, and he's discussing all these things that I knew was the right way to do in terms of animal husbandry and land management. And so he was one of my earliest influences and, kind of mentors at a distance, mentor through the books. And so I was like, one of these days I got to get out there. And, as life goes, I've never really took the time to make a special trip. Although, I mean, you can just go. They have, tours at regular times. You can just go sign up for a tour, visit. They have a farm store. You can purchase product from the farm store. They pretty much keep, business hours. And, it's just one of those things. I was like, it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. So when I got the opportunity to go out there for this conference, the answer was yes, absolutely yes. So the conference was on Friday and Saturday. We rolled in Thursday afternoon to drop off some stuff. Went back out Friday morning to set up our table. And this isn't like an absolutely huge event. I would say there were a couple hundred people, but they were people who were serious about what they wanted to do. not a lot of people just kind of fishing around or kind of seeing what they felt like following up on, but people who were already a good ways down the road in whether it was developing their land, homesteading, building alternative structures, various kinds of nonprofits and private memberships and things, things that keep you where you get to, control more of your income, control more of your life, and frankly, deal less with this modern, hyper complex system that is incredibly extractive. And I won't really get into all of the aggravating parts of it, but you guys are probably picking up what I'm throwing down, and so everybody is looking at ways to exit that, build an alternative, build things that kind of run parallel alongside it, so that you can eventually extract yourself to whatever degree that you want. So, tons of great speakers, but really the highlight for me was the almost 3 hour long farm tour that everybody went on. So they hooked up, I think it was 3 or 4 different tractors and wagons, and all of us piled on. And I got to see these systems that I've been reading about and watching videos on for quite some time. The chicken tractors, the Eggmobile, the Millennium Feathernet, the way they run their pigs, the way they move the cows. Just seeing this farm and hearing about how it had changed over the years by applying these regenerative techniques. Primarily of appropriate animal rotation is 90% of the game, and then applying compost, storing water in the soil, building a lot of ponds, just all of that work. It's just so it's just absolutely beautiful place. And of course, over the years, the farm has grown as they've purchased more land that's adjacent or nearby, and that was just wonderful. I was finding myself getting misty eyed because so much of that farm reminded me of how ours used to look when I was a little kid. So it gives me a lot of hope that we can bring a lot of these systems back into balance by continuing and improving the efforts that we're doing out here. So it was a great time. It was mostly sunny, like clouds were in and out, and it was real breezy on the first day and a little bit chilly. And I'm really glad that at the very last minute before I left, I grabbed a hoodie, or I would have been buying one from the farm store there. And the second day was nicer, less windy. It was warmer. They fed us 2 wonderful meals a day, just of course, the best food in the world, and had plenty of time to have a lot of quality conversations with people, both at the event and later on at the place where we were staying. So it was nice. For dinner on the second day, or late lunch, or whatever we were calling it, Joel sat down at the picnic table that I was sitting at. And this is the thing about Joel: when he's, when you go to his farm and he's there, like, yeah, he's getting paid to be there. He's got his fee and everything, but he is there with the group. He doesn't, run off and hide between his speaking sessions or whatever. He's sitting there, he's having meals with people, he's having conversations with people. So, I'm not one to like fanboy out or really anything, but I did, I asked him to sign a book of mine, or a book of his that has been very influential on me. Asked him to sign it, and shook his hand and said, just said thank you. I said, your work is a large part of why my stuff is successful now. And so just thank you very much. And I know he hears that plenty of times, but it needed to be said. So yeah, loved it. Loved everything about it. And it's worth the trip, guys. It's in Swope, Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley, and from Knoxville, quite, I don't know, maybe about 6 hours. Not bad. Pretty drive. Most of it is on I-81, so it's just from this direction, it's just pleasant drive. No, you don't have to go through any big cities or anything, and it's just stunningly beautiful out there still. So I was stoked about that. I really was. Got back home last night, after 9:30 or so, and been just kind of trying to get caught up on things since then. Angel had a successful move of the sheep. They needed to be moved on Saturday, and I had everything set up. So, she just needed to open a gate and let them through. But she and my parents helped her out with that. That went off without a hitch. So she's got a successful sheep move under her belt now. And, and everything, went well. We've had a lot of rain. Everything's growing. I mean, grass is growing, the weeds are growing, the garden needs weeded again. I've got to throw down some cedar chips in my paths as soon as I can. So there's a lot to do, and with the exception, if I can get to my job at best tomorrow, I'll do that. Well, it might get a rain out, but I pretty much kept this week at home so I could get caught up, try to stay on top of this, this spring rush that we've got going on here. And also, show note, our gathering is coming up on Sunday the 1st. If you're in the Knoxville area, you'd like to come by for our open house, homesteaders gathering, kind of a swap meet sort of thing much of the time, holler at me, strongrootsresources@gmail.com, and I'll send you directions and a little more info. But I wanted to be able to be home so we could kind of be getting everything together for that instead of like the last minute rush that it sometimes turns into to do that prep work. Also coming up class wise, June 14th is the next foraging class. I've got a couple of spots left in that. And June 22nd is going to be our grazing class. So that's going to be a sheep management, pasture rotation, how to set up the fence, how to know when it's time to move, how to size your paddocks, all these things that I've learned over the last 3 years. It would be a very good primer if you have just gotten sheep, if you want to get sheep, or if it's something that you want to be doing and you want to start kind of planning out what materials you need and what that kind of thing looks like. I've put a lot of time into testing different ways of building these fences, and at this point I've got it, I think, as efficient as I can get it with the equipment that I've got on hand. So that's going to be on the 22nd. I've got a few people signed up for that, but I've got room for probably two to four more if people want to come out for that. So throw that on your calendars. The website is up to date, and if you're looking at classes and stuff, just go over to the events page, and that'll show everything that's going on. We've got a busy June coming up. I'm not planning any travel for June unless I happen to land a consult or two from this latest event. I've put on about 30 email addresses from people who were interested, so good chance that's going to happen. But I'm pretty much planning to stay as close to home as I can for the next few weeks and take care of business. So as related to the Exit and Build conference, and it being Memorial Day, I felt like maybe a slightly different take on Memorial Day. So I know it's traditional in the United States that we honor veterans who have died, especially in service to the country, whether in battle or while they're deployed or actively in the military, and of course those who have whatever they've retired, they've finished their tours and they pass away, and so we're honoring those veterans who have passed. And I know it's a thing to apparently for my neighbors across from the apartments, barbecue and shoot guns and party until 4 a.m. Whatever, do your thing. But I've always kind of thought, or at least for the last several years now, that maybe instead of downing a whole bunch of beer and being on the lake and blasting your music and speeding around in your boat or whatever the case may be, is what if you redirected some of your energies into finding as much personal freedom in your life as you possibly could as a means to honor those people. So you guys probably know that like my family history is very important to me. This comes up from time to time. It's very important to me that I take care of this land because this land is legacy. Going back to my great grandfather, um, and he was not able to serve. He was actually missing some fingers from an accident when he was a child, so he was not qualified. Although he did have a role during World War II as a, I'm gonna probably mess up the exact title, but he was basically like a civilian watchman slash policeman. So he was like a coordinator in the community. So if there was like um, air raid drills or anything like that, he was one of the coordinators that took care of that as a civilian here, here in Ball Camp. But my grandfather, on Dad's side, so Dad's father, um, was a veteran. He was in the Navy. He was in the Coast Guard. He was a medic, and he served primarily during the Korean War. He was in a lot of the Pacific Islands, and he was out there on those ships, taking care of people, and on these islands taking care of both um, not just his shipmates, but the locals, the indigenous peoples on those islands. So, it's really important to me that I honor these sacrifices that were made. He did not die in the line of duty. He was out of the military when he passed away suddenly from a heart attack. He was actually studying, or he was serving as administrator. Jim Brown was serving as administrator of Children's Hospital here in Knoxville, and he was teaching at UT. He was a bacteriologist and a very brilliant man. He was working on his PhD, and he died suddenly while he was teaching a class. So, well before I was born. Dad was only 15 when Grandpa Jim passed away. So, a man that I never got to know. I only got to know him through Dad's stories and my Nan's stories and my Aunt Rhonda's stories and so forth. And fortunately, we have lots of physical history, lots of photographs, articles. I even have, well, I think my Aunt Rhonda has them now, but I got to look through a box of postcards that were sent to him requesting a specific test. He had invented a test that told physicians which antibiotic paired best for which kind of infection. He came up with that. So, and he didn't patent it. He gave it away. They wrote to him, and he either sent them the kit or sent them instructions on how to build it. It was apparently not especially complex, and it was set so that even in kind of a less complex environment, like outside of a hospital system, this particular system could be used. So, this, I feel very strongly that these are things that I need to honor and respect. And of course, I do it. I do it daily by giving a damn about my family's legacy, giving a damn about how I interact with people and how I represent myself and how I represent the business. So it's not just hey, it's a holiday, we need to remember these people. I mean, I'm glad, and we should, and and there's nothing wrong with having ceremonies in the veteran cemeteries and all that kind of stuff. Not a dang thing wrong with that. But I think it would be really cool if we saw people taking steps in having more control over their own freedom in their lives through whatever means they want to go about it. If it's building a business, if it's finding ways to, let's say, keep as much money in your community, in your family, and not being wasted in other directions. You guys can pick up what I'm throwing down there. Do it in ways where you are serving your local community. You are helping people that are going through a tough spell. So it was kind of cool that sort of coincided. This holiday kind of almost overlapped with Exit and Build, because that is the whole point of Exit and Build. And little known fact about me, but I went to a anti-war protest once, back when I thought that protests were useful. I was in my 20s. I didn't know much yet. And it was because it was, the second Iraq War was fixing to kick off and everything. And I remember when we were standing on the side when we were standing on the sidewalk there out in front of the mall, there were people yelling at us that we hated America, that we hated soldiers, and that we weren't patriotic, and that we needed to go get a job. And I just kept thinking, I was like, I don't really understand this. Like, we're literally saying we care enough about the lives of people, both veterans and civilians, that we don't want them wasted in a war that is not necessary. And I guess they thought the war was necessary. I'm sure there's a variety of opinions on that, but that's something that back then I didn't really seem to have the language to push back against it. I just saw it as this is another attempt by U.S. government to take away freedoms with things like the Patriot Act and so forth, and expend a bunch of lives of people they can't possibly care about, because it's exactly what happened. And I have friends now who are veterans, who are even still active duty, or they're in their reserves or whatnot, and they're dealing with the fallout, the emotional, mental, and physical fallout of those wars of Afghanistan and Iraq and all that. So, I feel like if we can get people knowing that there's really no such thing as getting everybody on the same page. That's just not how America works. But if we could just, people of various opinions and belief systems and political persuasions and so forth, to take the steps to build personal freedom. And it doesn't have to be through homesteading, but there's so many ways to go on about it. Homeschooling your kids, or creating various co-ops, teaming up and to achieve an objective without outsourcing everything to a corporation, or outsourcing help to the government, by kind of taking care of things as a community. I really think that's how we could better honor people who passed away in service, and our veterans who have passed away. So I would hope that people would see that as, like, this is coming out of me as a form of compassion, and because I give a damn about these people. I had a great uncle who was shot down during World War II in his plane. Never made it home. Buried somewhere over in Germany. There's probably very few of us Americans alive today who did not have a family member involved in some kind of conflict, or even, a lot of us Gen Xers, our parents, and that kind of between the boomer and the Gen X phase, may have been in one of the world's most needless conflicts over in Vietnam. So I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, hey, can we honor the people who make the choice, who volunteer to serve this country, by not needlessly sending them into conflict, and take the steps to conduct your life in such a way so there is less opportunity for money and funds and so forth to be funneled into those conflicts. Also, again, I'm not naive, guys. I know the government can just print money, and they'll come up with reasons, and they'll come up with ways to keep that machine running until there's just no way to keep it running anymore. But I felt pretty compelled to tie things together in that manner. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about it too. If I'm perceived as naive, I'm almost 42 years old. Maybe I still am. But I tell you what, my life has never been better since I took the steps to have much more control over how I earn my money, how I directed my energy, how, I can choose who I want to engage with and who I want to disengage with, and who I want to build my community with and who's not a very good fit. And that was definitely a theme at Exit and Build, was how can we come together in various forms. It doesn't have to mean that everybody's living, in some kind of communal situation all together on the land, but what kind of ways can we coordinate with one another, independent of approved systems, in order to get things done. We've done this. I mean, hell, Pippin knows we've done this by all showing up on Tim's property over in the other side of the state, and building stuff and having a good time, and then having a bunch of shenanigans and burgers and campfire and music after the fact. And nobody. We just all decided to do it. Nobody coerced us. Nobody twisted our arm. We just decided to because we care about each other, so we did it. And at this point, 99% of the people in my life are like that. We get together and we take care of things. We take care of business, and we don't go looking around for some outside entity to try to fix our problems for us. So as we go along, I would just encourage people to see what they can do. Take small steps. I took a lot of small steps, and I've got quite a ways to go. And I'm not sure that I even want to fully, quote unquote, extract myself. I mean, I'm not really one of these that wants to go I certainly don't want to be isolated. I want people in my life, but I just want, I want to be the one who makes the call, and especially how my energy and how my attention, which is another form of energy, how those things are directed. So they're not inadvertently misused, or even in some cases kind of weaponized. There's plenty of examples of people's attention span being used against them, or their emotions and their emotional reactions to things being used against them. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think it is right that we have a volunteer-based military, but we have the deepest honor of keeping those men and women out of conflict unless absolutely necessary. So, and perhaps folks can just kind of think about that, and think about how think about what's really going on when governments and other entities try to spin up a particular story about something and try to convince you that some other country is an enemy, or is going to attack, or whatever the case may be. Because at this point, there's just so much coming out that it's you got to question this stuff. You got to question this stuff that comes across not just the mainstream, but even a lot of the so-called alternative media sources at this stage. Got to pay attention to that. So, just wanted to share those thoughts with you guys. I'm going to sign off here in a minute because I have worked my butt off all day, and I just got back from jiu-jitsu and also got my butt kicked. So I'm going to wrap it up a little early tonight. But thank you for hanging out. Please give me your thoughts. If I can help you with anything, if you'd like to come out with any of my classes, if you're looking for land design, permageared, consulting, design work, and education, please reach out to me, strongrootsresources@gmail.com. And we'll catch up with you guys next time.